Consistent.
Yeah, he's been showing up. Third quarter was we're going to pick this one up, tied at 55. Clark hits the crossover. What?
When you're able to just dribble like that back, you gotta, that's just hard. It's hard. You gotta send more help.
By the way, since the award's inception in 2010 and last night, it was no exception. So the Fever, they were hosting the Sparks in this one. Of course, Tyrese Halliburton-Shanae pulling up to take in the action. Her 100th three-pointer through the season, 34 games, passing Ryan Howard for the fewest career games to reach 100 points. And then just a couple seconds later.
The WNBA just had its most watched game in 22 years, and Caitlin Clark is the reason why. But instead of celebrating, some league executives are cleaning out their desks right now. The commissioner just made the most shocking move in the history of women's basketball. You know what's crazy? This all started when Clark broke the rookie assist record in just her 10th game.
During that first month, the playoffs, they didn't feel realistic at all. Clark, she struggled with turnovers, and the discourse, it was really centered around this just being an adjustment period. So coming out of college, expectations, they were sky high for Caitlin Clark and the Fever, which, by the way, was the last year of Hall of Famer and franchise icon Tamika Catching's career. So Caitlin, she continues to make history. She's the first rookie to win WNBA Player of the Month.
The next day, phones were ringing off the hook at WNBA headquarters. By the end of the week, high-level executives who had been with the league for decades were suddenly stepping down. Coincidence? Let me show you exactly what happened. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now back to the video.
They have come out and they now have a list of all the teams thus far that has decided to move games because, well, Caitlin Clark's coming to town. And we got an article from Front Office Sports that covers, Front Office Sports is one of these sites where they cover the business aspect of sports, the money, revenue, yada, yada, yada. And it's a good resource. The scheduling is very interesting. There is a little reaction on that already. But let's take a look at this right here. 6 WNBA teams that move games versus Caitlin Clark and the Fever to larger venues.
The commissioner just fired some of the biggest names in the WNBA front office, and nobody's talking about the real reason why. Let me break it down for you. We're witnessing a massive shakeup that nobody saw coming, but when you connect the dots, it all leads back to one person, Caitlin Clark. Right when Clark started shattering records and drawing millions of new eyeballs to the league, strange things began happening at WNBA headquarters. Top executives who had been fixtures in the organization for years suddenly stepped down without warning.
Atlanta Dream moved 1 game to the State Farm Arena. Chicago Sky moved 2 games to the United Center. Home of the Bulls, home of the Blackhawks in Atlanta, by the way. That's the home of the Hawks. I did the Dallas Wings, and I did the Atlanta Dream, and I did the Chicago Sky. But let's just get a handle on what this looks like, okay? Connecticut Sun moved 1 game to TD Garden, home of the NBA Celtics. That's going to look really freaking cool on TV. I'm a Celtics fan, so that's going to look real cool.
First, it was a senior vice president of marketing with 12 years at the league, then a director of basketball operations who'd been there since 2009. Within weeks, 3 more high-ranking officials were gone. These weren't just random employees collecting paychecks. We're talking about senior vice presidents and directors who helped build the WNBA into what it is today. People who navigated the league through its toughest times and were supposed to be leading it into this new golden era. And the timing? Come on. Way too suspicious to be coincidence. The commissioner kept using corporate speak in press releases, calling these planned transitions and new opportunities for growth. But that's all smoke and mirrors. I got information from someone inside the league office, someone who sits in on the big meetings, who says these people were actually fired because they couldn't handle the Caitlin Clark phenomenon. They were actively fighting against the biggest thing to happen to women's basketball in decades. Can you believe some of these executives were working against Clark behind the scenes? My source confirms they were pushing referees to call her games tighter, trying to limit her media exposure by scheduling competing events during her interviews, and even criticizing her to reporters off the record. One executive allegedly told a major sports outlet that Clark was getting special treatment and hadn't earned her place yet. That's insane. The real problem boils down to this. These executives were stuck in the old WNBA mindset where promoting the collective was more important than celebrating individual stars. They preached team first, while the NBA was building billion-dollar empires around LeBron, Steph, and Giannis. But Clark brought in more viewers in one game than they could in entire seasons. The first Fever game with Clark playing drew 2.1 million viewers, about 5 times the average WNBA game. When ticket sales exploded and TV ratings hit numbers nobody thought possible, the commissioner finally realized these old-school executives were holding the WNBA back from reaching its full potential. Imagine having the next big thing in sports and your own leadership team is trying to dim her spotlight. My source says there were actual meetings where executives argued against giving Clark too much promotion because it might overshadow other talented players in the league. Meanwhile, arenas were selling out for the first time in years when Clark came to town. The final straw came after Clark broke the rookie assist record in just her 11th game. One executive was overheard saying they needed to put Clark in her place and that one player isn't bigger than the league. Apparently, this got back to the commissioner within hours. The next day, that person was gone. Office cleaned out before most employees even arrived at work. But here's where it gets even more interesting. The commissioner didn't just fire these executives. She replaced them with people who understand how to market superstars in the modern sports landscape. I'm talking about professionals who previously worked with LeBron, Serena Williams, and other megastars. People who understand that in 2024, sports are driven by personalities as much as play. One new hire actually came directly from a major sports agency that represents some of the biggest names in athletics. This isn't just some routine staff changes or corporate reshuffling. It's a complete revolution in how the WNBA operate. My source says the new leadership team has already started implementing a star-focused marketing strategy that would have been unthinkable 6 months ago. They're building promotional campaigns around individual players with Clark at the center rather than just teams or the league as a concept. And it's all because Caitlin Clark forced them to realize they needed to change or get left behind. The old guard didn't understand that you can celebrate individual brilliance while still respecting the team aspect of the sport. The NBA figured this out decades ago, but the WNBA leadership was resistant until Clark came along and made it impossible to ignore. So what does all this mean for the future of the WNBA? It's a complete transformation from top to bottom. Clark didn't just change how the game is played, she flipped the entire leadership structure upside down. The old guard who couldn't see past their team first mentality are gone, and now we're seeing what happens when you embrace star power instead of fighting it. This is just the beginning, folks. The new executives understand what Clark brings to the table. Not just points and assists, but cultural impact. The WNBA finally has leadership that gets it. Anyone still clinging to the old ways? They better update their resumes.